This is a game between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana, and this is the last classical game before their upcoming match on November 9, 2018. And this features a Petroff by Fabiano, and let's see how it goes. E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight F6, so this is the Petroff. Knight takes E5, D6, Knight F3, Knight takes E4. And instead of E4 here, Magnus essayed Knight C3. And Fabi immediately exchanges Knight, so Knight takes C3, D takes C3, and Bishop E7, Bishop E3, Knight C6, Bishop C4, and immediate kingside castling by Fabi. And Queen D2 here for Magnus, so he is keeping the option of castling on the queen side. And Bishop F5, and Magnus castles long here on the queen side, of course. And Queen D7, King B1, and Rook F E8. The purpose of this move, according to the annotation, is for the Bishop at E7 to be able to retreat to F8. And H4 by Magnus here, Bishop F8, H5. So Magnus intends to weaken the queenside pawns of Caruana. He intends to push H6 if Caruana would not do something about it. But of course, Fabi essayed H6 here, and then Bishop E2 here, and Bishop G4. What happens here is that Fabi prevented a G4 sacrifice here by Magnus. Magnus could go G4, and if the bishop takes on that pawn on G4, then Rook D G1. That's a possibility, but that's not possible anymore here. So Knight H2 by Magnus, Bishop takes E2, and Queen takes E2. So the light colored bishop is off the board. Knight E5 here, and Bishop C1, Queen C6, and F4, Knight C4. So what happens here is that Magnus goes takes his queen to D3 and Queen E4, exchanging offering to exchange queens, to which Fabi ignored. So G4 by Fabiano, and then Knight to E3, Rook D E1, pinning the knight. So here Fabi decides to exchange queens, to which it is an advantage for Magnus in this position because he is able to unravel his doubled pawns. So C takes D3 here, and Knight D5. And Magnus decides not to exchange rooks because it would not be to his advantage, because Black would be able to control the E file. So Rook EG1, then Rook E6, and here G5. And according to Caruana here, I blundered. I thought that after this move he can play F5, but we can prove it otherwise with the ensuing position after his Knight E7. So for Fabi, Knight E7 is a blunder. So what happened next is G takes H6, Rook takes H6, and now F5 is possible because the Rook is attacked by the bishop at C1. So what he did is Rook takes H7, Rook H7, but if he takes on H5, Knight G4 would now be possible if Rook takes H1 here. For example, here Rook takes H1, it's not possible because of Knight F6 check, King H8, and Rook takes H1, and that's a checkmate. So instead it's possible to take on F5, but just the same, White would be winning with Knight H6 check, and the Rook would be taken whole because after King H7 or King H8, Knight takes F5, and the King is exposed to a check from the Rook at H1. So what happened is Rook H7, and then Knight G4, and f6 was what Magnus' intuition told him to play. So instead of knight g4, f6 could be possible according to Magnus, and he stated that he's having some trouble making up his mind and being practical. So thinking can sometimes be bad for us. Apparently, knight d5 here or knight f5, then there is rook g5. Okay, so these are the possibilities that Magnus was thinking here. But what happened is knight g4, and we have king h8, and then bishop g5, and actually this is not yet that what happened. This is still an analysis of the move f6, and according to the analysis, this is crossing for white. Black loses material since he can capture an f6 without getting mated. For example, g takes f6, and then we have here what would happen after this. Okay, knight takes f6 here, and the rook is attacked at the same time the knight is attacked. So if the knight takes on f6, then we have bishop takes f6 here. Is that a crossing position for white? Do you think so? We have bishop g7. I think it's not yet a, but according to this, so what would happen if, for example, here, so if this one, what would happen? So we have knight f6 here, takes f6, and if it takes, that's a check. Okay, if it takes here, check, and then if bishop takes g7, and then rook takes, if bishop g7 to defend bishop takes f6, then we have rook takes g7, and if rook takes g7, we have here h6, pinning the rook and regaining material, or winning material here. So that's not possible. And if here knight takes f6, knight b6, and then we have h6, ignoring the rook for now, with bishop e3 next is decisive. So the threat is bishop e3 here. Okay, so one can defend with cannot defend with c5, because after bringing the bishop to e3, then the threat is rook g8 checkmate. Okay, so that's a very good analysis shown here. So what happened is Magnus erred by not pushing f6, and what he did was knight g4. So what happened is king h8, f6, knight g8, f takes g7, rook takes g7, and bishop e3. Unfortunately for Carlsen, b3 is too slow, so b3 cannot be the move here. And then we have here c5, defending the threat of bishop d4, and we have here bishop f4, and what happened next is rook e8, knight e3, rook takes g1, rook takes g1, rook e6, knight d5, knight f6, knight c7, rook e2, knight b5, rook e6 here, defending the d6 pawn, and rook f1, king g8, knight c7, rook e2, knight b5, rook e6, knight c7, rook e2, knight b5, and this is a drawn position. They have repeated their moves. Rook e6, but so according they have drawn their game, and Magnus wasted some good chances there. So according to this, to the notes here, a draw with Fabi is not a disaster, but I got serious chances, Carlsen said. I just couldn't calculate. Only after the game was Caruana shown Carlsen's finger on lips moment. I guess he thought it was already over, but it wasn't. At least Caruana said after watching the replay. So this is the last classical game between the two protagonists in the upcoming World Chess Championship. I hope they produce a very good match, and I think this game bodes well for them, and it has shown here that sometimes Magnus can't is unable to take advantage of his good position sometimes, although most often than not, Magnus really is able to take advantage of very small advantage and can win his games either white or black. But let's see. Fabiano Caruana is a very strong opponent for him, and they are all the same, almost the same age, and this is the first match between players of the same generation, I think. So let's see, and thanks for watching this video.